Thank you, AC. Appreciate everybody being here. And again, like last week, I'm not going to talk about, the Syracuse game unless you guys have some questions. But I would like to say that I was really proud of our team and how we responded to Syracuse. And I told them last week how much I believed in them. I said, you got beat by a good team, but we're a good team also. And I said, ignore the noise, what everybody's saying, and that's what we have to do this week. Last week, nobody gave you 2 cents, and now everybody wants to give you a quarter. And, so we've got to ignore that and prepare and focus on a really good Minnesota team. They're 2-0, as you guys know. They're coming off a 9-win season from last year. It's a really good football team. They're really balanced on offense, probably a little bit heavier run game than pass. I believe they're averaging 211 yards rushing a game and 198, 199 passing. So it's a big balance, a relatively good balanced offensive football team. Defensively, they're only giving up 243 yards a game and holding opponents to 65 yards a game rushing. So it's a really good football team. They're very sound in the kicking game also. And then the thing that really stands out to me about them is they're almost doubling up their opponents on time of possession. They're averaging 37 and a half minutes keeping the ball, and the opponent's 22 and a half. So we've got to do a really good job of staying on the field, converting third downs and staying on the field, and then defensively getting off the field as much as we can. I expect them to come in there. They're really big on both sides of the ball. I expect them to come in and try to impose their will from a running game standpoint and try to run the ball on us as much as they can. But it's a really good football team that we're playing here this week. So open that up to any of y'all's questions.
Coach, update on Brent.
Yeah, he got an MRI yesterday, and we're still waiting on the results of that.
You think he'll be too early to tell at this point?
Too early. I mean, it's he's wired different. So it's only Monday, and we don't practice today. So we'll wait and see if we get those reports back on here hopefully this afternoon.
Do you know when it happened during the game at one point?
Yes, sir. It was in the second half, probably early in the fourth quarter. He ran the ball, got tackled, and the play was done, and their big defensive lineman runs and jumps and lands on the top of him.
He has 21 carries at this point this season, which I think is halfway to what he had last year. Is there any, going forward, just with how valuable he is to being on the field for this team, is there any hesitation with that?
No, he's done a really great job of running the ball, for us, and had a couple 9, 10-yard runs, a 20-yard run the other day, and as ineffective as we've been running the ball here early this season, we need everybody we can to contribute, and he's done a really nice job from that standpoint.
Any consideration to give more carries to Shane Tucker? He's been out on the field, but I think he only has about 3 carries so far this season.
No, not right now. Shane's probably can help us more at wide receiver than he can at running back.
Okay, and we spoke about this after the game, but you like Tylee from what you've seen so far?
His first game back there, and I thought he did a nice job. And you can see we moved him around. He was at receiver some. We motioned him out of the backfield and got him involved in the passing game. And I think he'll only get better as he sees more reps, live reps at the running back position.
With the offensive line, we know they made adjustments, at halftime. Do you think they're capable of putting 4 quarters together, similar to the performance they had in the second half of the Syracuse game? Are they capable of replicating that performance over the course of an entire game?
Yeah, I have no doubt that they will and can. And again, you look at it, and I've said it, there's 3 new guys up there that have basically never played college football in the offensive line, and there's going to be, there's a learning curve. It doesn't matter if you're a fifth-year senior, like two of them are, but they've still never played. And until you get out there and you start playing, and especially the caliber of people that we've had to play these first 3 weeks, you get exposed a little bit earlier than what you would like. So, but I've got confidence in those guys that they'll continue to improve and get better.
Coach, I think they only threw the ball like 8 to 10 times last week, very run heavy. How important would you say it'll be that your defense has a good level of physicality in practice this week in order for them to combat the run this weekend?
When you say they only threw it 8 to 10 times, you talking about Minnesota or Syracuse? Minnesota. Yeah, that's what they're going to lean on. And, they're going to try to overpower you. Vanderbilt, and I don't know their game plan coming in, but I would have assumed that they wanted to run it a little bit better than what they did. We did a good job of shutting those guys down, for the most part in the running game. So we've got to, to answer your question, it is going to be important. There's only so much you can do from a physicality standpoint in practice right now, because you can't take a chance on getting people hurt. But we've got to be physical. This game will be similar to last week from a toughness standpoint. But we've got to play physical defensive football, and we got to try to outnumber them in the box, to maybe force them to throw the ball. And then when they do that, we've got to match up on the back end. And we did a nice job of that last week against Syracuse in our one-on-one matchups. When we were in man coverage, we contested a lot of balls, and I thought we played really well on the back end there. So if that can carry over to this week, that'll help us with our ability to stop the running game.
Do you think it's tougher to ignore Coach, do you think it's tougher to ignore the noise from last week or this week?
Probably this week, because you can. I really believe that you can coach harder. That you can really get on them a little bit more after a win, than you can after a loss. After a loss, you try to, bring their confidence back up and their morale back up, and you're motivating them to get ready to play this week. And after a win, you can always – it's easier to knock them back down to earth than it is to get them back up. So I think this week will be easier.
Coach, can you talk about your team's toughness from Saturday, especially in the second half, especially Brent getting injured there in the second half and then having the heck of a second half he did in your guys' comeback?
Yeah, I told our team, Friday night and then Saturday before we went out, that the key to the game was going to be playing with relentless effort and phenomenal toughness. And that was physical toughness and mental toughness also. So, I thought our team displayed that. You go on the road for the first time. You go into a dome for the first time for a lot of those guys, how loud it was in there. You're playing, not many of your fans are there. It's mostly theirs. I'll get it right here, Mark. And that's what I thought won the game, was our toughness and our effort, and you look at it, how we competed every snap, how relentless we were, in all three phases of the game. So I thought that our toughness was really on display that game. And I've always believed this, that if your quarterback is not tough, your team is usually not tough, because that's the one position that everybody sees. You can look at an offensive lineman and you might not be able to see him completely in there, but you can see a quarterback. And not only the physical toughness, but the mental toughness to overcome adversity, to overcome a bad play, that's always on display. And, and then I've always said that a quarterback, you think about it, you're going to stand back there. You're the only player on the team, on the field, that stands up there, 9 yards back from the line of scrimmage, and you're there all by yourself, standing straight up and down, and here comes a 6'4", 300-pound defensive lineman, and he's coming into you. He's going to knock your teeth out, and you got to stay in there. You got to have the toughness, the poise to stay in there and make the throw and get hit, get the stew knocked out of you, and then get back up and do it again. And that's the only position on the field that does that. On defense, people are trying to tackle you. On offense, you're blocking. As a runner, you got the ball and you can protect yourself. As a quarterback, you're exposed. So, if that's why I just believe that the toughness at that position it takes to play that position is more critical than any position on the field, and I thought Brent displayed that. He's done it all his life, but that game, especially in the second half after he got hurt, to do what he did was pretty incredible, and I think it rallied our team, our offense behind him. So I thought, the toughness, that not only he showed but our team showed was pretty special.
Coach, when you face, you played PJ Fleck a couple years ago in the bowl game. Does that help in preparation more so than, say, a coach you hadn't faced before, like a Dino Babers in a non-conference matchup?
No, probably not, because it's two different teams. A good coach is going to, adjust his philosophy to his personnel, and I'm sure that he did some things at Western Michigan that he's not doing at Minnesota because he's got different personnel. And same thing, he's probably doing some things at Minnesota he didn't do at Western. So, I don't think it'll have any bearing whatsoever in the game.
Jokingly, you mentioned the New York Times leaving the interview room. Why do you think that was?
Were you there?
I was not.
How'd you know that?
Nathan sends video back.
Dang, Nathan.
We
We
thought it was funny.
I mean, it was the first time after a game that I was waiting there for about 30 minutes for the interview. Usually it's you walk out and you answer a few questions and you're done. And I said that the New York Times or whatever must be interviewing people here today. So.
Coach, you've had a couple of newcomers on defense kind of step up and make some big plays through these first two games, and Reed Blankenship and Walter Brady. How would you evaluate how they've played thus far through the year?
I think, I think Reed has done a really good job. He played, some snaps against Vanderbilt. He probably got in, I don't know, I'm going to guess now, 25, 30 snaps, and did a nice job and earned a starting position for this past week at Syracuse, and, did a really good job. He's on all our special teams. He's a smart football player. He's a good tackler. He understands the game. And to be, doing what he's doing as a true freshman in the second game is pretty impressive. So he came up with a huge interception there at the end. So he's done a nice job. And, Walter's a good football player that's, getting back in the flow. I say it all the time. Anytime you don't play for a year, it takes you a little bit of time to get in it. So, he played well the first week and, did a nice job last week, when he was in there. So he's a good football player. Both those guys are good football players and will continue to get better.
Coach, it seems like looking at Minnesota, at least on paper, they haven't thrown the ball a lot, but they have a lot of big plays in the passing game. How do you guys prevent them kind of lulling you to sleep with the running game and then hitting you with a big play over the top?
To me, it goes back to discipline, being disciplined with your eyes, doing what you're coached to do. Whether you're in man coverage or zone coverage, whatever you're doing, that do your job and do what your responsibilities are, and understand the situation, the game, the situation of the game. when, hey, they run, here comes a play action deep ball. So, you just got to be disciplined in your keys, be disciplined with your eyes and what you see, and execute the defense that's called.
Middle Tennessee, our town, our team.